Is this hot? Oh, yeah, here we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Chandra Lynn, and I'm super excited to be here today. I am trying to be prompt and correct myself. We're not going to be here for 2 hours. We're only going to be here till 10:50, so you're off the hook. Unless, you really want me to stay. No, then we'd have to kick somebody else out. That would be bad. Amanda was actually the original presenter. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it out from Colorado at the last minute, called me, asked me to do it. But you're in good hands. I think I've been speaking at NAMM for over 10 years. And I have another panel today at noon for anybody interested in women visionaries in audio. So I'd love for you to join. And that one's in the big ballroom, so there'll be plenty of room. Love to see your faces. And I was really thinking how I could best serve you guys when I was told about this panel. And it wasn't really a panel. I think Amanda was just going to, talk about marketing and share her wisdom, which is vast. And I thought one of the best ways to really, help illustrate the power of marketing is to bring on a multi-platinum engineer, right? Grammy-winning engineer. So I want to introduce Irko to the stage.
It's on. Hello, hello, hello. Hi.
Irka's from Italy.
Yeah.
And what is one thing that's also really cool is we'll be able to have a little bit of a global flavor, how to do this everywhere, which I think is important to a lot of people, right? We're going to have this also recorded for on the NAMM University recordings. So for those listening, later, hello, hi, we're here for you. So let's see. How many people in the room are producers? Awesome. Engineers? Producer engineers. Everyone, right? It's like producers. Mm-hmm. Excellent. And how many artists? Okay.
I think they all are.
Artists that don't produce or engineer. No, just kidding. You don't have to answer that. I'm just joking around. Okay. So just to introduce myself, my name is Chandra Lynn. I have a marketing company called Glow Marketing. I have represented a number of people who are exhibitors here at the NAMM Show. This year, I have Universal Audio as a client. I have Telegrapher Speakers, H2 Audio, FSK Audio, and Rafter Marsh Law. So I have a variety. I have handled artist relations and PR for Avid in the past. Other clients have included Antares Autotune, PMC speakers. I mean, the list goes on. It's on my website and everything. But I can also talk a little bit about artist endorsements, working with manufacturers, different marketing angles, because there's a lot of power in marketing when you start to partner, with people that have big audiences that you want to reach. So you can learn more on glowmarketing.com about that. And I have actually represented artists in the past. Right now, I think I serve the highest by actually working with the manufacturers to support the artists, because there are a lot of promotional programs that are available that, so I'm more of a connector now than actually representing artists, for those of you who might be wondering, because I get that question a lot at the end. So we're going to basically just have a discussion today, and I want you guys to feel free to, we'll have a question answer at the end, because I do have some, actual questions for him that I put together, and then, but I want it to be conversational, okay? And the only thing I ask is that it's okay to talk a little bit about yourselves, but try to make whatever the question is relevant to the whole group. And if you have questions that are really personal, I'll stay outside in the hall for a little bit and take, individual questions. So no worries there. So,
all right.
Okay, that's the whole intro spiel. Okay, who stayed up way too late last night? Okay, all right. I'll try not to be too annoying. Just kidding. Okay, awesome. So so you were born in Italy. When did you come to the States?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Venice, Italy. I started music, I opened my first studio in '98, so that tells you when that happened. It was a long time ago. Oh yeah, look. You look so much better than me on the picture.
It's grainy, though. I got to work on that.
It's all right. So, yeah, I opened my first studio in '98 in my dad's basement. The whole thing was as big as this booth here. It was very, very minimal. But I made it happen. And then I opened my second studio, which in typical Irko fashion, go from a musty basement to a standalone building, which was like going literally from a thing where I had my dad park his car next to my booth to a standalone building, you know, and that was because I was very lucky because I placed an entire album and basically I didn't make any money off of it, or rather the check that I picked up from the label, I looked at it and I put it back into the business, you know. So I opened a very big studio, you know. Fast forward a few years, I moved to New York. This is 2006. And I get there, you know, completely green. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. You know, I couldn't even legally work there. I hope there's no immigration officers in here. And but I did my thing. And 2 weeks after getting to New York, I got my first double platinum award for working with Jay-Z, and that was what, like a welcome to America, career changing, defying. You know, it really defined my first 10 years, actually my entire career. You know
Well,
because
slow down because we need to find out how that happened.
Oh yeah.
You guys, like
Oh, that was
that's
funny.
something that is difficult to make to have a your first break. So what was the magic there?
Yeah. Well, the magic, you know, the way I described it is I'm at the airport. Next thing I know is I'm doing records with Jay-Z. It wasn't like that, obviously. You know, the whole thing started 10 years prior, and I was on my hustle on MySpace, talking to all kinds of producers and musicians and artists that I could, you know, get to chat with, really. You know, it was like I'm talking to everybody. I don't care if you have placements or not. I just want to build a book of business and really show the people that I can do what I'm selling, which is mixing, you know. And good thing at the time I was still in Italy, so that's all I could do. I couldn't record, obviously, so I could only mix. And at the time, you know, I was still on the console and everything. I had all my goodies, and I was selling that hard, you know. And eventually, one of these guys that I started working with a lot, he was in Japan, moved back to New York, and he was like, I need you to come out here and be my engineer, man. And I was like, yeah, no, but I got no fucking money. Like all the money that I had, I put in the studio. So liquid, I got nothing. I have a lot of equipment that I can, you know, monetize through, but I didn't have any money to just buy a ticket to go. And eventually he kept, you know, like bugging me, like, you gotta come, you gotta come. Meanwhile, he gets a placement with 50 Cent, which at the time was like the biggest, he was like the Drake of the day, you know? And they didn't have him have a say so in the mix process of that record that he did with 50 Cent, which was a, you know, a big deal for him, for everybody, really, you know. So he said, from here on out, it doesn't matter who the artist is, whoever's gonna get my tracks, they're gonna get an Irko mix together with it. And the next thing was the Jay-Z thing. And I just happened to be there because he busted my chops enough for me to be like, all right, man, I'm going to shut you up. I'm just going to get on the cheapest flight that I can get to go to New York. And I think it was like $500 or something like that, maybe even cheaper. Turns out the reason why it was so cheap is because I had to sleep at the airport in Zurich. I did not know that. So I had to sleep on the bench, you know, with the freaking, like, you know, all bundled up like that. Not exactly the best thing, you know? And but yeah, the rest is history. I get there, this happens, and you know, from Jay Z, I went to work with a bunch of big time rappers in New York, which is exactly what I set out to do. Like I remember, you know, being 14 years old in Italy, listening to rap music, learning English through rap music, and thinking, yeah, man, you know, it would be really cool to work with Onyx, to work with Eric Sermon, and all these people that now sometimes call my phone, and I'm still like, look, they're calling me. It's crazy, you know.
So the takeaways that I'm getting, there's already a few. One is that it really wasn't that long ago that this happened, right? So you know, it is kind of. I mean, it's not maybe rags to riches, but it's definitely you know, you had a magic moment there, but also it was a yes. You know, you kind of really went for it. You took that leap of the flight, and then also the you know, having the I was going to say the dream, the vision. Like, what is it you want to do? Who do you want? You know, I think part of it is first understanding where you want to go, like in your own, what are your own goals, and then seeing if it
Totally.
can align.
The vision board,
Mm,
physically vision board. In my bedroom, I had a thing, you know, like a cork vision board where you can
interesting.
hang things, and I still remember a platinum plaque, empty with like no names or no nothing, and then a map of New York, of Manhattan and L.A. and then a bunch of cars because I'm a car guy, so I wanted all these cars, and then a big ass SSL, which I never bought, but whatever. I have a way better studio now. So yeah, absolutely. Law of attraction, visualizing where you're trying to be, and then also be very specific with it. At least for me, I found that the best results I've gotten is when I'm like very clear on what I want. I don't want something that's kind of like that. I want that. Nothing else exists, and be very mindful of that. When you're trying to do a bunch of other things, it's like you're getting diluted. That's how those Indian gurus get to sleep on the bed with this, what do you call those things, the nails or whatever. You know what I mean? Like all that energy gets dissipated through all these little things. But if you only put one of those and you get the guy to lay, he's not gonna have a good day. And that's the effectiveness of being, very focused on one thing and one thing only. But what
What
do I know?
about the technical side? So before you got to that place, you had to probably hone your chops to
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, yeah.
Once you
So
were in the room, you needed to make it happen. So how
yeah.
did you get there?
I was about to go to New York, and I was like, I'm like the best recording engineer. I'm the best tuning vocals engineer in Northern Italy. I'm like, there's nobody that can fuck with me. I'm the best. I get to New York and I see other engineers work at Sony recording studios. Like, whoa, check. Like reality check came in quick. And that was one of those moments where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm great. But hold on, there's all these other guys that are better than me, so I gotta get better. So the technicals, I showed up prepared for sure, but compared to the competition that I would see in these like mega studios where they had Beyonce and Christina Aguilera and DMX and all these like big talent, I was maybe like a C plus. Like I was okay, but compared to those guys, they were like flat. They were moving like these shortcuts like crazy, and I was too. But I was like, okay, I had to learn. So of course that like put my ego in check real quick, and but I turned that into, okay, wait, I gotta learn this, and I did, and then I became one of those guys, and eventually I did big things also because of my technical skills and my ability to deliver as a recording engineer, which led me to do mixing only, right? But that was my way in.
Some people struggle with imposter syndrome in this kind of situation where they're like, do I really have what it takes? What do you have any advice for anybody to get, over that point to still be able to show up and deliver?
Yeah, I feel like if you don't have a little bit, at least, of imposter syndrome, you don't really know what you're doing. Like, if you like make a website in 10 minutes, you're like, okay, I can make websites. Yeah, but you're not Amazon, though. That's like a very different thing. So I often picture this to be kind of like a pendulum, and that's the healthy way I approached it. I still approach it. I still have imposter syndrome. I just had it 2 days ago. So it's like a pendulum, right? So I'm like, I'm the king of the hill. I'm the best at it. And then I go back down. I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. Oh man, I'm the worst. I need to learn. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not that bad. Oh, I got a Grammy. Okay. Oh wait, no, this other guy got a better mix than mine. Oh yeah, I'm terrible. So it's like that. It goes back and forth. And if you're only in either of the locations, it's actually not good. Because if you feel like you don't have anything to learn, guess what? You will not learn anything more. So everyone else is gonna pass you by, right? But also if you feel like you're no good at anything, then you're like your motivation and your soul is not happy, and it's not gonna put you in front of the right faces that you wanna be in front of, right? So a little bit of a healthy balance of all of these is the best way to do it. I try to do it myself, try. Try.
The other takeaway is about relationships. It sounds like having a relationship is what really opened the door initially.
And still today, absolutely, yeah. It's the snowball effect of doing great, and on this record, on any record, and by record I mean an album or a song, there's never one person. There's always a bunch of people that are involved, from management to the money guy to different artists, different musicians, whatever the case. If you kill this mix on this one song and there's like 6 people involved, guess what? 2 days later, one of these 6 people are gonna need a mixer. So if you did a good job on that first mix, they're gonna call you back, and that's how the snowball effect starts, right? The 6 people become 12, the 12 become 20, the 20 become 50, and that's how it gets to be, right? And to the point where there's too much work coming in, and you gotta kind of handle who does it in your team. I have about 8 people that are working around my studio. So depending on what the situation is, now I get to spread it around to the different people.
How much do you wait for them to call you? I mean, you pretty have to be proactive to keep those relationships going, or are you just kind of now have assistants taking those calls for you?
The first 10, 15 years, I was absolutely on my hustle. Like I said, on MySpace where it started, and then, all the other ways. So very, very active. These last 15 years, I'm completely passive. I don't reach out to anyone unless there's like some major event or something. I'm completely passive at this point. Good thing.
So lucky to have you here.
Of course.
I do one thing, just personal note. How I remember meeting Irko was actually through another show. I think we were at AES, and you were doing a lot of video work at that time. And you had asked if there was any clients I had that you could support with interviews. And I think coming to me with an offer, a gift, a giving kind of way of approaching me was so. I was so grateful. I remember that. Do you tend to lead with that a lot, like being what you can do for others?
Yeah, I still do. Even nowadays, in my mixed deliveries, I always include like a little meme, extra passes. For example, when they ask me for the show tracks for the songs that I'm delivering, I would give them a couple of different versions, not because they ask. I always believe in going the extra mile and giving more than what they're giving me. And that kind of, not to like buy my way into the situation, just because, when I'm on the other side of that, when I go to Five Guys and they give me extra fries, hey, it's the same thing.
Like that guy.
Of course. So it's the same thing with my deliveries and everything else. Like, when they come to the studio to do tweaking of mixes or whatever, I'll be very happy to be like, you know what, lunch break, let's hop in one of my old schools and go cruise Pasadena. It's beautiful, Where do you get that kind of service? You know what I mean? If my mom is in town, you better believe you're gonna get an Italian home cooked meal. Of course. So yeah, So going the extra mile, it's a big thing for me. I love it when I'm on the receiving end. So of course I wanna be on the same side, on the other side when I'm on the giving end. Yeah.
So when you're an artist, you're used to having a logo, a special name, a one-word name, and a brand, and a look and feel, and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that sometimes producers and engineers may not realize that there's an opportunity to do that as well. So can you tell us a little bit about how you shaped your brand, how you decided to just go by your name, and the bow tie we have to ask about, you'll see it on all of his stuff. Beautiful photography, great videos. Like, how did you arrive at going, I actually need to create a brand in this industry?
Yeah, it's important. I think that when you're looking at a beautiful pizza, for example, on your plate, right? It looks amazing, A beautiful woman looks amazing. A beautiful car looks amazing. And then if you combine that with substance, a beautiful woman that has a substance, the car that goes fast.
Get the car too.
There you go. It's very important, right? So I figured, all the effort that I put into my techniques and my ability to provide incredible mixes and, platinumized records, like I always say, it has to go with an exterior aspect of visuals, right? Hence my memes on my social media and all of that stuff. And I figured it just kind of goes with the package. Once you step into a Rolls Royce for the first time, you're going to get spoiled. You will never feel your ass being held by these incredible seats, right? Or the driving experience. And that all is part of the experience. And that's why when my clients come to my studio, they see a place that you can literally find nowhere on the planet. It's like the most amazing auditory experience. And same thing goes with the communication visually. I always wear bow ties, always have a similar outfit, with the shirt and the jeans and the sneakers. That's kind of my thing. And it's very important. I think, whenever you think of a lot of entities, whether if that's mixing engineers, like if you talk about CLA, you can imagine immediately what he's wearing, right? He's always dressed the same. And I want to do the same. I want to be presented with that image of, okay, yeah, that's the dude with the bow tie and the accent, right? That's kind of what I do. Maybe with the strange cars too. It's important for a producer or engineer, really any entrepreneurial kind of person, to have that. And it needs to be something that fits you, though. It can't be like a mask, a suit that's untrue to you. It needs to be fitting with how you're comfortable to dress like, to behave like, present yourself as, and stuff like that. Like, I'm not comfortable to go in and talk business with a client at a concert. It's loud. It's not the right environment. You got people asking for autographs and paparazzis and stuff. You know what I mean? It's just not the right space. And it's the same thing for me. I want to make sure that what I wear, my suit and the way I present to people is comfortable and fitting to me. And it's true because people will smell the fakeness from a mile away immediately. You can't just fabricate that. So whatever fits you, find what is the thing that is you. My thing is the bow tie. I like bow ties. I have 400 of those suckers. That's what I like to collect.
You had a wood one on when
yeah.
we first met. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That one is a concrete one.
Oh,
This is a plastic piece of the air ducts of my studio. I just have all kinds of weird stuff. But that's my thing. Maybe your thing is to wear the backwards hat. Maybe it's the interesting hair. Look at that. Whatever works.
that's so cool. And I think part of it though with producers and engineers is often being behind the scenes people and maybe not feeling as comfortable, being creating a brand and being out there. So I do like what you said about authenticity. I think people can tell when you're not being authentic about it and you're just kind of feeling like you have to put on a front. But with that said, you can do professional photography. You don't even have to have anything that's other than just how you are, but having the professional assets really really helps, because then you can use them across all your platforms, everything, everywhere you need to show up. So I just I didn't know if we were going to have internet access, so I just kind of grabbed a couple screenshots to show how consistent he is with his branding. Tell us a little bit about your video work, because you've been doing that since I met you, and there's amazing content out there, and I know you've grown a pretty good following. For producers and engineers, it's unlike artists. You can't really compete with the number of followers that an artist would have, but you've been able to do really well with your subscribers and followers.
Yeah. The YouTube channel initially kind of was a way for me to open a window into the studio where I had a session to show people what I do. So at the time, if I had a interesting band session where I was recording, I'd be like, okay, let's capture that on video. So that's the second one where I said the go-go band recording session. That was interesting. An entire band all at once recording, that was cool. So it was another way to just show potential clients what I can do for them, So that was the line of documentaries that I have. I think I made about maybe 20 or something like that. And then the second line is all the interviews. Every single interview is like a different thing because depending on who the host is and what kind of questions they have and what they're after, some are more about the technicalities, some are more about how did you get to mix a third of Kanye's discography, those kind of questions, and so I like to present those because once again it's like a way for people to get to know me. Music is a very touchy subject, so for someone to trust another person, another entity with their babies and say, okay, yeah, here, mix my record, make it the shape that it will be known as forever, that's a tall order, so I want to make sure that they are comfortable with me. So hence the interview section, that's big. Now, one section that I recently hid has been the studio construction. I had another maybe 20 or 30 videos about, because I built a studio from the ground up, right? A full reinforced concrete building and everything. Nobody does that because, people usually are not crazy like me. So I decided to capture that, to present that. But I took it off since, studio's been up for a few years now. So I felt like it kind of had its time, and so that's it. But yeah, communicating is very important. All of this is about that. And you're right, producers and musicians, generally speaking, engineers even more so, it's not really the most immediate thing that you would think that they are able to, hold a microphone and talk to people. So I get it. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult.
And so to produce your videos, are you able to do a lot of it yourself, or do you need help with them?
All of those documentaries I did myself. In fact, they're not like high end, high end production or anything like that. It was just a couple of GoPros and that was kind of it. I learned how to edit on Final Cut, which is not very difficult from Pro Tools. Like if you know how to use any DAW, it's more or less the same with the additional factor of the video. But yeah, no, it was all me. I never really made any money off of YouTube or anything. It was more just like making of a business card.
And is it enough to just post it there, or do you then promote it somehow that you have the videos available?
No, for the longest it's been, I'm making this, and whenever I'm talking to a person that is say into recording drums, I'll be like, oh yeah, I got a video where I showed how I did it that one time. Here, check it out. So no, I wasn't like, even the views and the subs are not like big numbers. It was more like a customizable business card that I could send to a direct person when in need. Yeah, so no, it wasn't a big production. It's not, and I say was because I haven't done a lot of these in a long time now. But it's yeah, it was a stepping stone. Nowadays it doesn't really happen as often that I need to convince. Once you got a couple of Grammys and dozens of plaques, it's like, okay, yeah, the calls come in regardless.
Somebody I talked to the other day who's also an established producer said that there was a ton of work that he did for free. And the reason is because he was able to use that as a credit. And so he started, getting better and better credits. And I know I am curious, did you have to do much for free initially to get those credits going?
Countless, Chandra.
Okay.
Countless and endless stuff that I've done for free and that I have not been credited either. So at least you like, well, you don't have to send me a check, but at least give me the credit. Yeah, sometimes it's not, most of the times it doesn't happen like that. In fact, most credits, you can ask anybody that's been in the industry for like a decade, credits are never correct, or almost never correct. So it's difficult. But so yeah, a lot of free work, absolutely. But I didn't look at it as free. In fact, for me, it wasn't even free because I had to go to the other side of the planet and pay immigration lawyers and pay high New York rents where I was coming from an economy that was a lot lower. So it wasn't free. I was actually paying to work, which it's like, wait, what? But the way I looked at it was, it's an investment. I'm putting money into this savings account that's gonna grow eventually, my career, and it did. It paid off big time. I always say that the biggest gigs that I've gotten came from free work, which I could have gotten paid for, but maybe the relationship would have not been as strong and healthy, and as the longevity of it paid off. So I mean, I'm talking about like $10,000, 10,000 times more than the $1 that I could have gotten the first time. So yeah, the free work is still a thing for sure.
So with the producer Rich Tizzoli that I was talking about earlier, he was sharing with me that he actually is a big space fan, right? He loves space, anything to do with space. So he went to the local planetarium and he said, "I would love to do the audio for you." And it ended up being this amazing thing where he now is known for doing all the audio for all of the a lot of planetariums. And I bring it up because, this is obviously a really unique example of just going right into more like rap and hip hop and stuff. But there are other niches that you can own or develop for yourself, and by offering that alignment with your passion, he really enjoyed doing it. And he says he still likes to do it sometimes for free because he just really gets into kind of a meditative space, and he gets access to this amazing footage, and then he gets to go hear his work in a planetarium. It's very cool. So you can think about a little bit outside the box sometimes, and that might even end up being a bread and butter while you're trying to cultivate some of the other credits. And he ended up going on to do. He actually does the audio for Shark Week. Do you guys watch Shark Week? I mean, there's lots of examples where you can parlay things into little niches for yourself that don't always have to just be right in pop and rap and stuff. It can be something that's aligned to your personal interests. So I wanted to share that with you. So here's your Instagram. How do you handle the social media platforms differently or the same? Like, what is your approach?
So yeah, I mean, most of these. So the first three are posted there. They're pinned, right? But the next two gray ones that you see around the burger post, those are just live streams. So every now and again, when I have a minute, I just do a live stream on my Instagram, do Q&As, or maybe share what I'm doing, whatever the case. So yeah, it's 100% me. I do have a team that will handle intake and bookings and stuff. They do take care of that for me. But everything else that has to do with the communication of what I'm doing day to day or whatever, that's all me for sure. I used to have like a very like a set rhythm, like post every day at 9:34, that kind of stuff. Nowadays, I don't really do any of that anymore. I just kind of do it whenever I feel like it and when I have time, because really that's, if it's like a little live stream, I can just do it in 30 minutes, no problem. But when it's like, posting, content that's being premeditated and stuff, that's work, so I don't really do that much. But yeah, no, very simple, just like that. I like to engage with my audience and promote what I'm doing. I will repost all of my mixes on my stories and stuff like that. But that's kind of low level I don't have a marketing team or whatever. I should talk to you about that.
Hey, after the session. No, so well, I think it's great. So it's cool to be able to hear your work. And so is this you want to put up a lot of your different mixes, or do you just kind of pick special ones to feature, or just kind of stay current?
Right, right. So nowadays, I only work on stuff that I feel that I resonate with. So stuff that I actually like, stuff that I believe in, and therefore everything that I will do is gonna get posted. So because I want to promote them, not that my audience is anywhere close to that of the weekend or something. Obviously, like you were saying, they have millions of followers. I don't. But yeah, I will be like, hey, I mixed this. I'll put the bow tie on the post, and that's how I did it. So yeah, it's kind of genuine. It's whatever I do is what I post.
So I just pulled this one out because it was so if you guys know Warren Hewart, Produce Like a Pro, it's another great resource and a producer who's been able to parlay, becoming like an influencer. And so I see you guys together. So do you feel like these kind of collaborations do a lot for your career?
Well, it's interesting. I'm just noticing 7 years ago this video was made, and yeah, a lot of visibility. This is my channel. I want to say yes, it is. On his, I'm sure this video has dramatically more views than on mine. I don't know if it really would make a big difference, because major label people or big talent are not really gonna watch this. They're most likely um, the routine will be something more like this, like a recording engineer that has seen this he may have thought of the guy with the bow tie, and he'd be like, hey, big artist, maybe you should get that guy. So I don't know if there's a direct correlation between this video particularly or one of these and the next gig that I'm gonna get, but it's one of those things where everything kind of leads to the same river, and eventually it's gonna create that momentum that you want in your career. So I hardly ever turn down interviews or things like that because I'm like, sure, let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Creates awareness. You
Yeah.
never know who's watching,
Exactly, yeah.
so. I need a quick time check because I want to have enough time to open up questions. Do you know what time it is? 10:30. Okay, cool. Maybe just a couple more. Let me just see what I haven't covered here. Because it's that time in the show that I need my own support slides. So we talk about your personal brand. We talked about us using social media to showcase your work. Are there any other ways that you find, it's helpful to showcase your work?
Well, the charts definitely help. Whenever you have something on the chart, there was a year where I had I forgot the exact numbers now, but it was like a year and 2 weeks of at least one of my mixes was on the top 100. That's like a big thing. I forgot the exact specs, but that will definitely do it. That will make you remember. And like I said, whenever you're working on big projects, especially, there's hundreds of people involved, and they talk. They always talk. So
Seems like referrals are
yeah,
a big
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So yeah, we talked about that with the relationships and referrals. So we were good here. So and then collaboration. Well, I mean, where do you find that you get the most of your work from now? Are you getting them from A&R? Are you getting them from like who hires you?
It's the talent. I want to say half of it is the talent, and that means a mix between producers and artists. So that's half of it. The other half will come split between management and A&Rs. The A&Rs usually don't make the calls. Well, I guess they technically make the call, but they don't make the decision. They usually just facilitate what has been told and what talent informs them that they want. But again, it depends, and also when you're working with one A&R, first of all, I saw that on the long-term relationship with the labels. The guy that you work with at the label he's going to be at a different label in 6 months. They always turn around, so there's no real long-term relationship with the building or the establishment. There's a relationship with the person, and then this person kind of shifts around, and as long as they are within the same capacity in the same kind of genre or whatever, they will call you back. You become their guy, and that's kind of how you keep working. But same thing happens with producers. There's some producers that I've been working with for almost 20 years now, and we happen to be on video calls like maybe every other week. So like it's an ongoing thing. Once you have your tribe, that's who you're working with. That's the team. So yeah, I would say the people is the most. Like I've never really had an agent or someone that can bring in gigs. That person has never been that has never really existed in my career. But I know a lot of mixing engineers do have that person, so maybe that's something that just didn't happen for me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that might be something to start with too, because they have the relationships already, and then when you start to build your own, then you can do that. Okay, so what other? So you're here at NAMM. We've seen each other at AES. Are there? How do you get yourself out there? I mean, if you, I mean, especially in terms of advice, you know, do you show up places a lot? I mean, I know how busy you are. It must be tough to get out of the studio, but you got to get some sun sometimes.
Yeah, right. In the morning before I get in. So I don't usually go to concerts and just like as a fan. I will show support to my clients. So whenever they have the new single that I mixed and they have a concert to it, I will go to it to show support. But that's not really a way for me to find work. It's more about supporting who has believed in me first. But things like this, NAMM and AES, of course, that's a staple. You know, especially. Well, I haven't gone to a New York AES in a long time now because I'm in LA. But yeah, of course. I mean, you establish relationship, you meet people, and you know, I feel like I'm within my peers here. You know, this is my guys. You know, so of course, I like to be here. You know, for the one time in a year, I'm the celebrity. You know, I'm talking on the mic. You know. Yeah.
That's fantastic. We talked a little bit. I mean, we're here to talk about marketing, but what people don't always understand is that things like relationships and all that is marketing. So you know, there is the side of the visual branding, like we talked about with your look and using professional services for things like photos. Quick shout out to my photographer, who's also a celebrity photographer, Robert Downs. And he didn't know I was going to do that, but you guys need photos. He's the guy. Telling you, you can go to Glow Marketing in all our social channels, and you'll see his amazing work. But so yeah, do invest in yourself. I think that was one of the very first things that you said was that you put the first money you got back into yourself, and so I think that's an area that you can do it. You know, make sure to leverage the social media channels. But I think that's not anything new that anybody doesn't know. You know, everybody always has to get better on social, but personal relationships and asking for introductions, doing referrals and offering something instead of what if you can get a job, it's like, what can I do for you? And I think that really goes a long way. And that goes a long way too with artist endorsements. When you go out to visit the brands here at the show, if you're aware of them and you're just like, look, I'm authentically, using this stuff. This is like my part of my process and I really rely on it. Is there anything I can do for you? Do you have any products coming up that I can support, for a launch or, do you need some shout outs on social? I have this, you don't have to have a huge audience. You might have a niche audience. There's a couple other producers that I work with who may have a audience in, say like Spanish language market. So that might be something that isn't really well covered by a U.S. company, and they're like, yeah, we really need to reach that market. So wow, now that person becomes really important to a campaign, and we could build something special out with that person. So you don't necessarily have to have huge numbers. You can have niche audiences, and that is something that can really go a long way when you're approaching anybody, but especially brands, whether it's musical instruments or lifestyle brands or really any company that you want to build a promotional partnership with. Do you have any endorsing relationships how do you work on those?
Just like you said, basically, whenever I use something that I like, I will reach out and tell them, hey, your speaker is fantastic. That plugin, use it all the time. And I'll do organically like post and tag them. I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm using this on such and such vocal. So yeah, it's organic. Like you said, all these people behind brands are people like us. It's like boys and girls that have a family and have passions, and they want to be encouraged on what they're doing. So yeah.
And they have goals. I work with clients to help them develop those goals. And so they always have product launches, life cycles. And if you get in early and help them with a launch, that can be really helpful. Also, there's tons of data analytics now. So if you are tagging people, a lot of times you will come up in one of their reports. So it's not, I mean, sometimes we feel like, they're never going to see it, or I don't have that big of an audience. You'd be surprised, actually, what does come up in these reports. And so I would, trust the analytics that, you may show some blip on their radar, and call the attention to them. I know it's hard to get a hold of them sometimes, but try to keep asking for the right person, and somebody will at least want to pass the buck and give you somebody else's name, right? So use those names, and work that as much as you can. I think we're good with my questions. And I definitely want to open it up to you guys. I don't know, do we need a mic for that, or is this, I may be able to hear you guys. So I don't know. Does anybody have a question for me or Irko? How about you over here, since you're closer, and then we'll get maybe we could get a mic over there.
So he's asking about mixing headphones, small speakers, big speakers, loud or low. All of the above. So every one of my mixes, I want to experience it as it will be experienced. So sometimes you will have it in the background noise of the Starbucks, and sometimes it's going to be a massive concerts with huge speakers, and on the train, on the earbuds. So I'll do all of that. I'm very lucky to be able to work in an incredible studio where the acoustics are damn near perfect. So I don't need to check headphones or car tests or anything like that, but I still do my earbuds and headphones tests to make sure that what I'm hearing in the studio actually matches it, and it always does. And also, I put a lot of breaks in between my sessions. So a typical routine for me will be to dedicate the morning to more of the numbers, things that will never be really heard, or the audience will never be aware of what is the 37 hertz doing at 1 minute 20. They're not gonna know, but it's very important because it's the structural part of the mix. And so that's one session in my mind. In the afternoon, after lunch break, I might dedicate more onto what the people will hear. So like the auto-tune effects, the reverb throws, the delays, the beat drops, if we're talking about a hip-hop thing, or whatever the case may be, where it's more of an artistic input, right? So by separating the two, I'm kind of using different areas of my brain, quote unquote, so that I can be more technical in one sitting and more artistic in another sitting, right? Then I try to forget about all that by sleeping over it, and next morning I come to it, and you will always notice something that you didn't notice the day before, even though you heard it 1,000 times, right? And so that's like how I do it. Throughout all of these processes, I will use usually moderate levels, so like not super loud, but not also uber quiet. And then every now and again, especially towards the end of the day, I will be happy and go to the big speakers. And in my studio, I have over 100 decibels of full range, so it's like it's like very, very loud. So when you're talking about listening loud in my studio, it has a little bit of a different meaning. It's really freaking loud. Like if you scream, you can't hear yourself. So not that I stay on those levels, I try to stay away. In fact, the older I get, the less I do that. But it's important to know how that is going to behave. The mix is going to behave at those levels. There's an article that came out in I think it was last year, that one of my clients performed in this mega arena, and there were seismic readings of the low end of my low end, and that I need to test that.
Seismic activity.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick. So I think you had your hand up next. See if we can hear you.
Difference between in the beginning of the career and nowadays, right? That's what he's asking. I'm a big. I love when we can improve every single one of our aspects in work and personal life by just maybe a 0.5%, maybe 1%, but every day. And when you do that over time, you get a lot better at everything, communicating with your spouse, with your friends, of course, in your work environment, in the engineering stuff, of course. And so one of the things that I often give an example to for this is that I wasted so many hours with that solo button on while mixing. It's the dumbest thing. You guys stay away from that solo button. If you need to find something for a second, of course, it's totally useful. But like mixing by just soloing the guitar, soloing the synth, soloing the kick and the snare, yeah, you make it sound incredible because there's nothing around it. So awesome. But then it will never be heard that way. So that's an example of that little 1%. Once I realized that I was just wasting so much time and efforts into that, that's a major difference. You know, you learn through the way that you should not do this and this and that. Uh, it's just pointless. Just like we were talking earlier about the volume, right? Listening loud in the studio, of course you're gonna want to do that in the beginning, right? You excited, you want to hear the stuff that you're doing loud, but that has such a quick window of opportunity for, because after that you get nothing but diminishing returns with the volume, right? The louder they get, the less you are actually gonna be objective on what's happening in the mix. Therefore, you're really gonna just mess it up. So a lot of these things, you know, and these are like more technical things, but there's also the communication with the client. You know, one thing that I've learned from the OGs that I was very lucky to be exposed to in the studio is how I would see these guys that were twice the age of the talent. The talent is the hot new shit on the radio, so it's the talent that runs the ship, right? And that's okay. You know, I'm here to in support of the boss, and I always say the boss is not the guy, it's not the talent, it's the song. But the song came from the guy, so or the girl, whatever. So you know, there's a relationship here that we need to make sure that the chain of command here is respected. So oftentimes, whenever they ask me the most outrageous thing that is something I would never do as a mixer, I will tell them, "Hey, I'm doing it. It's your baby here we're talking about. I'll do whatever you want." But if you want more bass than what we got, that's just an example. What we're gonna have is gonna be a quieter master. So do you want to be? Do you want to have your song quieter than X, Y, and Z on this playlist? Eh, that's your choice. So that's an example of communication stuff, right? And then of course all the other stuff that goes around all of our business, which is computer management, licenses management, money management, taxes, all of that stuff. Nobody wants to talk about that because it's the most boring thing ever, right? But it's very important. So over the years, you're going to learn all of that and hopefully have a system in place. And there is no such thing as mistakes, but just a chance to learn something new.
If you're tight on time and you still need to market yourself, do you have a particular thing or a couple things that you would recommend that people make sure to do to market themselves?
Um, I mean, be very clear on what you do. If you have on your bio that you are a photographer, skateboarder, producer, artist, and lyricist, it's like, okay, so what do you really do? You know, and I understand some people are chameleons like that, and that's fine. But then don't be surprised that you're not gonna get as many calls for that one thing. You know, like for example, I was just saying earlier that a large chunk of my gigs come from producers. If on my line of descriptions of what I do, there's a producer, will a producer hire another producer to mix a record? Probably not. I mean, maybe, but it's like, you know, do I really want to have my wife going on a date with the hottest friend of mine? It's probably not, you know. So I would be like very deliberate in what you're telling the world who you are and what you do. You know.
Actually, that is super key. I used to talk about the Jack or Jill of all trades. A lot of times when people approach me at the show, they'll, it does take a while to explain themselves because they're trying to tell me, everything about themselves as quickly as possible, but it's too much. If so, picking something and then knowing your audience, you may change that for different people, but no, but narrow it to the one thing you want them to walk away remembering. Like for example, if you introduce yourself and then I walk out and somebody says, "Oh, who's that?" That I could say, "Oh, he's a multi-platinum engineer." You know what I mean? Like quick type of thing. And I noticed that you're really consistent with that across all of your branding. I didn't when I was trying to pulling bios and things for him, it was so easy. It didn't matter which, channel I went to. It was he presented himself the same. I think that's fantastic. Is there anyone else? Yep, you.
Hi, Irko. Thanks for being here. If you were, if all of your credits were cleared out today, how would you go about going and finding folks to work with? Your talk mentioned not going out to see concerts necessarily. Like, what would your strategy be for finding collaborative artists to work with?
The way to get clients and build a clientele from scratch. Well, that depends on, like, if it was me right now today, You know, I'm a middle-aged white man, you know, dealing with a lot of artists that are half my age at most, and they don't look like me. So that will be an interesting way to get into that kind of realm, you know. And I have been able to do that because I started with huge talent that had, you know, that I gained their stamp of approval in the beginning, like this guy can do this. So that was an easy way to, not easy, but it was one of the ways that some doors opened. You know, I still get a lot of no's. You know, so if I was to start that today and do that, I will probably try to bet on the upcoming artists that are not yet the bigger guys, but eventually will be, hopefully, you know, if everything works out right. And the way to do that will be to say, okay, I'm seeing this trend of this talent coming up, let me invest in that, and maybe a few others, and invest in that. So don't go there and ask for payment. Be like, okay, let's do this together. Maybe not an entire discography, you know, but maybe we can do 4 or 5 songs or something, and then see where that takes us to, you know. Of course, it's difficult though, you know. When I did it, you know, the story that we were talking about earlier, that was 20 years ago. That was a very different landscape, you know. So things change all the time. Even the mixer as a entity today is different than 20 years ago. When I was fresh in New York, I would hear stories from Tony Maserati and all these like OGs. They were making incredible amount of money, but there was a lot of efforts into mixing sessions also, you know, talking about booking studios for, you know, $1,500 a day for 3 days for one song plus the fee. You know, that landscape is different today. So I don't know what I would do. Probably I would try to do the approach that has been successful for me in the past, which is, you know, let me plant seeds everywhere and a few of those will grow. That's the way I would do it.
Yeah, and we talked about offering some free services. You know, my son Kai over there is at UCLA's music industry program, and he works for Cherry Pop Records. And you know, there's some up and coming talent at that school. You know, some that were American Idol's top 10 finalists. You know, there's talent out there that would love an opportunity to work with a producer, an engineer. They may not even have that much money, but they may have some, you know, reached a certain level, getting in early with some of those kind of people. So even going to colleges, music programs, you know, things like that may be, you know, if you just have absolutely no other way in, you know, an opportunity because it gives them a service that they couldn't normally access because they're not at that level yet of having, you know, Irko or one of the other Grammy-winning guys, you know. So, do we have time for one more? Are we really done? We're at time. Do you can yours be answered out in the hall, or do you think it's great for everybody to hear this? We'll do one more. One more? Okay, go for it. Sorry.
So you said that the latest years you're a little more passive about your marketing and the phone rings. But how do you like balance that like that comfort zone and that little voice in your head that keeps saying that you should do more? You know that you're
When
reaching
is
out
it done?
because I think we all the time we struggle between those ends, right? So, how's your perspective about that? Because no matter at what point, success can be a very relative thing
Very
to
true.
everyone, right?
Very true.
So, how do you like? What's your perspective about that?
Yeah, it's that's why a team in place is very important. You can bounce off ideas with people and see how their feeling is about the situation, you know. But as long as my plate is full and I can pass it on to other engineers that work in my same studio and have that flow, that means I'm good. So if I go, you know, 2 months with nothing coming in, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to reach out. You know, luckily it hasn't happened in the last 10 years, so that's good. In fact, I'm turning down more stuff than before.
Let's thank Airco for being here. Thank you so much. That's great.
Thank you.